A depleted Bears squad travelled to playoff chasing Oldham at the weekend and unfortunately came home with a 58-6 defeat, but it wasn't through any lack of effort. We've got all the details from Sunday's game. This is the world's greatest podcast about the Coventry Bears. This is Bare Necessities. Welcome to Bare Necessities, your podcast all about the Coventry Bears. We live at covbearspodcast.com. We're at covbearspodcast on Twitter. You can subscribe in Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Google Podcasts, plenty of other places too. And we're sponsored by the Bears Vice Presidents and York's Tim. I'm one of your hosts, Dave Musson. Joining me as always, my co-pilot, Craig Cathcart. Craig, how are you doing? Nice goal for Watford on Sunday?
Yes, yeah, getting more goals in. But yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. Nice to see my namesake continuing to be on a scoring streak.
Yeah, and to inflicting misery on your team's rivals as well. It's all very handy.
All good.
So, coming up on the show this week, we've got all the analysis and reaction from that Bears defeat to Oldham on Sunday. Also, Craig had a chat with Harry Kaufman about his recent sabbatical to go and play rugby league in the USA. And we'll have a very quick chat about the visit of the North Wales Crusaders this weekend, including explaining how you, listeners, might be able to help us out. But first, there's two quick things we wanted to draw your attention to. So, number one, a big well done to James Gertens for bagging a try in the Netherlands win over Germany at the weekend. And number two, we wanted to flag that the Supporters Direct Community Champion Award is now open for nominations, with the winner being announced at the Championship and League One dinner later this month. So in terms of the award, if you've never heard of it, Supporters Direct are looking for fans that go above and beyond the call of duty, those who support their team through adversity, or those who work hard to benefit the community. So if you can think of anyone who does a mighty fine job of working hard for your club, then you should put them forward. So that might be a selfless volunteer, it might be an inspirational community coach, or it might even be a pair of well-meaning buffoons who host a podcast. Whatever floats your boat. But if you do think of somebody, particularly from the Bears, who you'd like to nominate, and I know there are plenty of good candidates, ourselves aside, then you can email nicola.hudson@supporters-direct.org. So that's Nicola with no H's, NICOLA.Hudson, HUDSON @supporters-direct.org, and tell them in no more than 500 words why your person deserves to be the Supporters Direct Rugby League Community Champion for 2018. And applications close at midnight on the 19th of September. I assume some information will be put out about that online at some point. I haven't seen it yet, but that's from a press release from the RFL, so it is legit. And if you didn't quite get the address, then just contact us and we'll send it to you in a format that you can copy and paste. Anyway, enough plugging for awards that you may or may not want to nominate us for. We should probably move on to reflecting from Sunday's game for the Bears, which, as I said at the top of the show, was a 58-6 defeat away to high-flying Oldham. Now, Craig went to the game, so I will pick his brains on that in a mo. But first, let's hear the post-match reactions of Bears head coach Tom Tsang.
So, Tom, no lack of effort today. I thought the lads really give it a good go today. Probably the tries just before and after half time really killed the game. The Bears are right in it right up till half time, really, weren't they?
Yeah, we started slowly. I think that's Oldham's game plan, is to come out of the box as fast as they can and just play really direct, confrontational, physical through the middle. It wasn't anything different to what we were expecting. That was exactly what we planned for. But yeah, we were just a little bit slower out of the blocks, both in terms of figuratively in terms of the game, but also our line speed. We weren't coming up off the line and meeting Oldham, and we were getting flat-footed, planting our feet, which meant that they could find quick play the balls. So those first two tries that they scored really set us back, and obviously we fought a little bit, fixed a few little bits and pieces defensively to get ourselves back into it. At 10-6, I thought that we could kick on from that point, but obviously then they got one straight back, and then we were back into that arm wrestle and letting them sort of run into our line rather than come up and meet them again. we just sort of played into their hands a little bit too much and weren't really working together as well as we could have done to combat what their strengths were. And also, actually, I think at half time, we probably had as many chances as they had on their line.
Yeah.
We only came away with one try out of maybe 6 opportunities, whereas they scored every time that they had the opportunity. So that's something that we've mentioned before in previous games, that when our sort of strike rate in terms of tries from opportunities is something we need to improve.
Yeah, I mean, it was 16-6 with about 5 minutes to go in the first half, so it was a hard fought first half, and I think Oldham probably were surprised at the fight that the Bears put in. As you said, it was just they were a lot more clinical today, I guess.
Yeah, definitely, and I think that's last 5-10 minutes of the first half was where we started to tire because of the guys that are coming into the team. So we had the guys were brought in off the bench. I think they did okay, but you got Richie Hughes, hasn't played for 3 months. You got Harry Kaufman, who's been away in America playing, who it's his first game back and hasn't really trained. You got young Cameron, who's only playing his 3rd or 4th game. So our strike power and fight off the bench compared to what they were bringing off the bench, that just sort of was probably the difference, really, the strength that they had on the bench compared to what we were able to bring on at that point was probably what turned it. And then obviously the two teams started the second half as they finished, and they managed to get a couple of quick tries, which then again set us back. But I was fairly pleased with the way we dug in at times, but we were still not very we weren't reacting to what they were doing, because they didn't do anything different for 80 minutes, and we let them do that time after time and weren't really reacting to it very well. So there's some things that we need to fix up, but we also had a lot of players out this week, which obviously didn't help either. So pretty pleased with some of the lads that have taken an opportunity because of injuries and whatnot. So with guys returning next week and the team that played, we've got some selection.
Yeah, I was going to say it was a thin squad today, but actually the guys that came off the bench really did well, and you had no real recognised props on the bench, and Harry did well, and the other lads did well when they came off the bench. So there was a real good effort today. As I said, Oldham were just a bit more clinical, but any standout performers for you today, really?
It's difficult to pick out any individuals. Really, I thought we were good as a team, and then the times that were bad, it was collectively as a team. I thought Dante took his try well. It was a nice pass from Chris Barrett to set him up for it. And I thought defensively, Chris and Kieran again were probably our strongest two. And the effort from, like you say, the two recognised props that we did have, and then the guys that were playing out of position at prop when they came off the bench, there was some good effort, but potentially just the application was slightly wrong.
Yeah, there was guys that played a lot of minutes today, probably more than they would normally have played, and it was good to see that right to the end the Bears really fought hard and actually slowed Oldham's scoring down in the second half and closed out the game relatively well. Yeah,
and it didn't help either that we had quite a few injuries throughout the game. We finished the game with no fit substitution, so we had Zach Williams came off with a couple of head knocks, so he couldn't go back on. We had Cameron Stewart, it looks like he's done his shoulder and possibly for the season, so he couldn't go back on. And the other two guys who picked up little niggles as well. So, the injuries didn't help us, and it didn't help our sort of flow in the game. And meant, like as you just said, a few guys had to play longer than they probably would have done otherwise. So, all in all, Oldham's a tough place, notoriously tough place to come and play against. The way they play is, like I said, very aggressive, very direct and confrontational through the middle. And if you don't match that, then it's always going to be a tough and long day.
So I believe the guys have had a couple of weeks off with the break, and it's all back to work. It was back to work today, but big training session coming up this week, I guess, ahead of the Crusaders game.
Yeah, we've got a big week. We set when we came into these sort of last 7 or 8 games, we set ourselves the plan or the aim to finish consolidate our position above Scholars, and we wanted to do the best that we could to chase down Crusaders. Scholars beat Keighley, so that just means that we absolutely have to win 2 of the next 3 games to stay ahead of them, and that's the plan. And it's going to be tough. It's not like it's not going to be easy at all. We've got 3 teams who are in good form, who, apart from Crusaders, we haven't beaten before. So it might be ambitious, but it's definitely what we're aiming for.
Yeah, well, I think there's a real possibility in the last 2 home games, certainly, of getting a result there. And, well done today. It wasn't the result that you wanted, but, all the fans that were in attendance really couldn't fault the effort today.
Brilliant. Well, that's good to hear. Thank you very much.
So thanks as always to Tom for joining us. Now, Craig, you went up to Oldham for this one. So I get the impression it was another example this season of a game where the scoreline didn't reflect the performance. So how did it all go?
Well, I'll talk a little bit about the experience. It's another new ground for me. Mm-hmm. I'd not been there before. So talk a bit about that. I must say, I'll start with the bad, and there wasn't many bad things to say about the trip to Oldham, but I did see one of the most bizarre things ever on an away trip, and that was the players and staff, when they got off the coach, having their bags searched by a very shitey lady.
Interesting.
Which was including the physio and all his equipment, which was a bit bizarre, but hey, there you go. Those are the rules when you go to different grounds. But I have to say, it's a small, tidy stadium. The atmosphere was really good. The fans were incredibly friendly, really, really friendly, and made us feel very, very welcome. They clapped both teams off at the end of the game, including giving the Bears players quite a big ovation as well at the end. And I wish them luck for the future. Apparently they didn't play in that ground when they were in the championship. Mm-hmm. I think everyone that was there, you can tell that there's a real passion for rugby league, and hopefully Oldham will go from strength to strength.
So tell me a bit about the Bears' performance, because it was pretty close up until just before half time, wasn't it? It was 16-6 at one point.
Yeah, at 35 minutes, I think it was 16-6. At one point it was 10-6. Mm-hmm. Bears played really, really well in the first half. Really give it a good go. Just another one of those things, though. I think it was a patched up squad. There was a few players hadn't played for a couple of months. There was a few players haven't actually played many games this season. Just tired a bit just before the hooter, and Oldham ran in a couple of tries just before half time, which I think made it 28-6, which really wasn't a true reflection of how the first half had gone. Bears really unfortunate, I think, to go in with that sort of margin at half time. It was a much closer game than that. The Bears really give it a good go. It was very hard fought, created good opportunities, probably didn't take some of the opportunities that they were given, because they got some good chances. They had a lot of good attacking play in the Oldham line, although the Bears' try was fantastic. I really wish I'd managed to record it, because it's certainly one of the better tries they've scored this season. Mm-hmm. Lovely flat ball from Benstead. Chris Barrett caught it. Really quick hands out to Dante, who was running at pace and got over the line. Really nicely worked try. Unfortunately, they couldn't cross the line again. Second half, Oldham came out really fired up at the beginning of the second half. Got another couple of tries. The Oldham kicker, I think he only missed one in total, or maybe two, but he was kicking from the touchline and all sorts. So, it was 6 points basically every time they scored, and it stretched out the lead. And they got another couple of tries during the second half. The Bears did really well, because they were very much dead on their feet at times, and defended well, really competed well at times. And put in, aside from the mistakes that crept in, they performed very, very well. the one thing about Oldham and all teams near the top of this league is if you make a mistake, if you give away a penalty or you drop a pass, then they will punish you. And pretty much every penalty the Bears give away, Oldham went down and scored from it. Every knock on, Oldham used it and scored. So it's one of those things that, you know, on a different day with maybe a few more of the regulars in the squad, then it might have been slightly different, but that's the way it goes. And the lads, there was certainly no lack of effort from the players. You know, all the Bears fans that were there were really appreciative of the effort they put in and made it known whenever they come off the field. And as I said, the Oldham fans reciprocated that. They also give the Bears a big ovation when they went off, because the lads never give up and never stop trying. You know, at the end of the game, there was no subs. There was various injuries throughout the game, so really we're up against it. It was a backs to the wall kind of performance, but you know, it certainly was a different performance than the one where the Bears played Oldham at home and got nailed at home. So lots of positives to take out of it, and some very good performances as well.
And it's worth, you mentioned, we both mentioned the fact that it was a depleted squad this time around. I mean, it's worth going through the names of the players that weren't available. So obviously Gertsch was away on international duty with the Netherlands, but then the injury list included Chris Vitellini, Paul Emanuele, Ben Gray, Rhys Dan Gover, Cameron Pearce-Paul and Jacob Ogden. I mean, that the Bears have had some difficult points with injuries at points of the season, but it's tended to be clustered around either the forwards or backs. I mean, that's a real spread of injuries across the pitch in just about every key position. So for the Bears to put up such a decent showing and improve on last time they played Oldham as well, it's credit to those players who've come in and been able to fill in those places as well, isn't it?
Yeah, there was some great, some very good performances of Peter Ryan. Again, only I think he's been on the bench a few times now, but I think it was only his, probably third or fourth start in a Bears shirt, and thought he really didn't look out of place. Never give an inch going forward. Defensively, as usual, really, really good. Both props, Malachi as well, was superb. You know, they ended up playing a lot more minutes than they probably would have expected, and both kept going right to the end. You know, I think Dante as he always does, had a good game. You know, Liam Rice-Wilson as well, and Ben instead played the whole game carrying an injury from the last game. So, you know, he wasn't 100%, but certainly it didn't really show on the pitch. You know, the usual suspects, Kieran Sherritt and Chris Barrett, were both their usual great selves, and you know, it was all around some good performances and not much in it despite the scoreline.
And what about Oldham? Do you think they look I mean, we've seen most of the teams in this league this season. Do you think they look like they could sneak up in the playoffs, or do you think there's too much quality elsewhere for them to get up this season?
I think there's a lot of quality in their squad, and at the time they played the Bears at home, I thought they were probably one of the top three teams in the league. I think they've dropped off a little bit over the last month or two. I think injuries and other players being unavailable for different reasons has maybe weakened them a little bit. I think on their day they can put points on anyone, but it's just playing those top teams. So when I say the top teams, the Bradford, Yorks, Workington, even Doncaster, who are on a run at the moment. So they'll need some big performances before the end of the season to finish top five.
I suppose it depends if this mooted new structure comes in, because if this change is happening where 3 teams get promoted this year, then that's Bradford and York done and up and not in the playoffs, which kind of opens it up potentially for a team like Oldham, doesn't it? If they can put a run together at the end of a season, they could end up getting promoted purely because they've just one of those 2 big teams and are not in the equation anymore, which it's going to be fascinating to see if that actually goes through. And lovely of Rugby League to be as organised as they always are as well, and plan these things in advance.
Still haven't made a decision on it. Yeah,
No, it sounds like it was a good showing from the Bears, and another sort of credible performance in what's been a good season but a tough season, given how much quality there is in League One, really.
Yeah, I think I've said it all along. The margins are not that great. I think you take probably any one of the Bears starting lineup and stick them in any other team in the league, and they don't look out of place. It's just that relative experience compared to other teams. I mean, the total number of appearances Oldham have, probably completely dwarfs the total appearances for there's probably players in the Oldham lineup that have played more games than the whole of the Bears lineup put together. So that just shows, it is about talent, but experience plays a big part in this league, because, there's those extra 1% that people say, isn't it, that you add them all up together, then, it makes the difference especially on days when there's not an awful lot between the teams. Yeah. And rugby league's also a game of momentum. So, you don't have to necessarily be massively better than the team you're playing to put some points on them if things are going your way, and you've got the momentum going for you, then you can add points.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, time to move on from Sunday, I reckon, and we'll crack on with the rest of the show. So there's no Ask Mr. C this week because I totally forgot to put the call out for questions. So instead, we're bringing in a one-off special feature called Ask Mr. K. Now, that Mr. K is Harry Kaufman, who was back in a Bears shirt on Sunday after some time away playing rugby on the other side of the Atlantic, and Craig caught up with him about his American adventure, and this is what he had to say.
Right, so I've got Harry Kaufman with me. For those not in the know, Harry's been on a bit of an adventure recently. He's back in a Bears shirt today, and it's great to see you back in the shirt. So, for those who don't know, Harry, where have you been the last couple of months?
So I've just spent the last 3 months in Philadelphia, playing for the Philadelphia Fight in the United States Northern Conference.
Yeah, and so how did you do? How did the Philadelphia Fight finish up at the end of the season then?
It was one of them. For myself, it was a bit disappointing, but for the rest of the team, I think they really quite happy with how they finished. I think last season they finished second bottom, won one game, but this season we finished second in the conference itself. I thought we were the best team in the conference, but unfortunately we had a bit of bad luck towards the end and unfortunately sort of slipped up in the playoffs. But like I say, it was a big improvement, I think, from their part last season. But for myself, I left a bit disappointed, but it was still a really good experience all in all. So.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been following American Rugby League from afar for a little while. It seems to be growing all the time. There's more clubs every year, and it's a bit more competitive as well, with lots of teams at the end with a chance of winning the whole title.
Yeah, there is definitely. I think there's a lot of challenges over there. All the clubs are so far apart. So all that considering, they do really well. There's not a lot of funding as well. And there still seems to be like a real sort of passion for it over there. We were having a couple of 100 people down watching a game. We always had 20 plus lads at training, all willing to train hard and wanting to learn. And I don't think, like I say, out of all the teams we played, I don't think there was really a weak team at any point. They all seem to have something about them. Very physical. Probably lacked a bit in the technical area, but it was all very physical. You had to respect the opposition. And there's definitely space to grow the game over there.
Yeah, and what was the standard like over there? I mean, I suppose it's probably difficult to judge because you play to the standard. Once you go over there, you play to whatever standard's there, but there must be some good players over there, I would have thought.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, it's a world away from League One, but it's really physical. If you go in to a game without giving it the respect they deserve, you'll get found out, and you'll get hurt really. So if you give them the respect and sort of get yourself in the right mindset for the game, then it was okay really. The biggest challenge over there is the heat as well. It's playing sort of 34 degrees plus 90% humidity plus, so that's a big challenge over there. They take a lot of breaks, so it's a bit stop-start, but there are some big, strong guys over there, some really quick guys. A lot of the guys that come across from American football, you can definitely see they've got some talent there. I think we had a winger and a fullback that you can obviously see were American football players, and I thought they were really, really good. they catch absolutely everything that comes their way, and then they're hitting on 30-40 yards every time they return it as well. So there's definitely some good players over there. Yes, I think they just need a bit more coaching, a bit of technical stuff, and they can really, really be a good sort of base to grow the game going forward.
And what was the sort of biggest crowd that you played in front of over there?
Me personally, I think we had a couple of games where we might have had maybe 200 to 300 people. Unfortunately, we didn't make the final, and the final was in Jacksonville, for those that don't know. Jacksonville, there's not a great deal to do there, I don't think. Once the football season finished, the American football season, all the sports fans are looking for something to do. So the final was there, and I think there was 5,000 to 6,000 people watching the final itself. It shows there are certain areas where the game could be huge, it's got they just need a bit of investment, a bit of someone just guiding them in the right way, and I think it could really kick off over there. And hopefully we get to see that.
And what's Philadelphia like as a city? I mean, my only experience of Philadelphia is watching It's Only Sunny on TV. But what's it like as a city?
Yeah, that's one of my favourite things to watch as well. It's a great place, really. The team itself is based about 25 minutes outside in a little town called Conshohocken. Got really good facilities there. They're playing an American football field, but it's marked out for rugby league. They've got really good changing rooms, a couple of stands, so that's good. Philadelphia, I said, it's a 20-minute train journey. There's quite a bit to do there. It's really lively. I think it's probably a bigger city than sort of Manchester and Leeds, to give it some perspective. It's such a good base as well. I definitely recommend it to anyone, because you're an hour from New York, you're sort of 3 hours from Washington DC, an hour and a half from Atlantic City, so you've got to visit all them places. So you've got a big airport nearby as well, so we were able to take a trip to Cancun as well for quite a cheap flight, really. So it's a great place to base yourself. If any players are there thinking about doing the same thing, I'd strongly recommend Philadelphia as being the place you want to be, really. It's a great place.
Yeah, so, I mean, heading back now into the Bears, obviously, have you any plans to go back out there again, or was it just one of those things you wanted to experience and try something new?
I would love to do it again, but it was definitely a case of it being a one-off. I think I need to sort of settle down a bit now and save up for a house, so if there wasn't that there, I would love to go again, but I think it was a one-off. Really enjoyed the experience, and made the most of my time there, really. So it's a great 3 months.
Well, thanks for the chat, Harry. As I said, it's great to see you back in a Bears shirt, and well played today as well.
Cheers, thank you.
So fascinating stuff from Harry Kaufman there, and great job on the interview, Craig. I mean, the USA is a really exciting prospect, isn't it? And it sounds like Harry had a lot of fun out there.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a growth sport, rugby league in America. Just him saying, the final got, what was it, 5,000-6,000, he said, was phenomenal. And even if teams like Philadelphia Fight are playing in front of 300, which compared to some clubs over here is not a huge amount, but it shows that there's growth in the game there, and they've got different conferences set up now. I mean, 20-30 years ago there was maybe 4 teams in the whole of the country playing rugby league. So it's definitely growing, maybe not at the pace that some people would like. But with players like Harry going out there and giving their experience and working with teams and there's a lot of expats out there playing as well from Australia and even from the UK. So there's definitely an opportunity there. I think we've got to try and continue to grow rugby league there, and got to try and make sure that World Cup that's scheduled in, is it 2025? Make sure that happens. Yeah. There's been a few rumblings in the last couple of weeks due to issues around the Denver test and what happened there. There's talk about the backers of the American World Cup bid pulling out. So hopefully it'll still happen. I think it's essential for international rugby league that it happens, and essential for American rugby league, because it's a perfect sport for players that want to convert from gridiron or and other sports and give it a good go, because the skill sets are relatively similar.
Yeah, and there's so many players who don't make the grade in NFL.
Yeah,
that, like you say, that core skill set is so transferable. they could easily transition and have a lot of fun playing the sport as well. I think they'd enjoy getting their hands on the ball. They'll definitely get their hands on the ball in open play far more than they would in NFL. And they'd have a bit more freedom to be creative and express themselves, which would probably suit plenty of athletes who are sort of currently thinking about trying to make it in the NFL. They could probably quite easily have their heads turned, but the sport needs to be in a position where they could make a career out of it, and I guess that's the real difference at the moment.
Yeah, and I think Harry said it was very physical, and Alan Robinson, obviously the CEO of the Bears, he's played in America quite a few times. He's played for Ireland Rugby League over there. The Americans, when they play Rugby League, are physical because that's what they're used to from, playing sports like gridiron. The other thing as well, I went over there with Coventry University many years ago to play, and we ended up winning, but we got absolutely hammered on the field. They were absolutely huge guys, some ex-rugby union players, some ex-American footballers, and so on. So, there's definitely a massive player pool there, and it can be tapped into. And, I hope it does take off there. Certainly, things are moving in the right direction in the US.
Yeah, definitely. And great that there was somebody flying the flag for the Coventry Bears out there for a bit this season as well. So well done to Harry for that.
Yeah, absolutely fair play to him for taking that opportunity and giving it a go and experiencing rugby in a different country.
Definitely. Well, I think that's almost time for us to go for this week's episode, but not before a quick mention of this Sunday's game at home to North Wales Crusaders. So it's kick-off 3 p.m. at the Butts Park Arena as usual. Now, sadly and very unusually in the life of this podcast, neither of your presenters of the world's greatest podcast about the Coventry Bears are actually going to be at the game this weekend. Craig and neither of us are able to attend. So if any of you listeners are going to the game and would like to help us out by offering your thoughts on the game and the performance of the Bears and all of that, then we would absolutely love to hear from you. All we'd like is just a couple of you to, if you fancy it, record your thoughts into your phone, send them to us, and we can play them on next week's show, just so we've got a few voices of people who are actually there. Obviously, we'll be tapping up some of our usual spies and getting a feel for what the game was like, and we'll be able to bring you the post-match thoughts of Tom Tsang and the usual stuff. But we thought we'd throw this out there as a chance to get some more voices on this podcast, and make use of the fact that some of you are going to be there when unfortunately we're not. So if you'd like to do that, just drop us a message on Twitter, or send us an email using the contact form at covbearspodcast.com, and we'll let you know where to send the audio to, and we'll see if we can pull something together. So Craig, obviously we're not going to be there, but how are you feeling about the prospects of Sunday's game? Because we've said it many times on this podcast, North Wales Crusaders, it's one of those teams that the Bears have got probably about a 50-50 record against, and they obviously won away to North Wales last year, but were beaten twice at the Butts Park Arena. So it's a difficult one to call, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm gutted that I can't make it, actually, because I do think this is one the Bears can win. I think the Bears will pick up one more win probably before the end of the season, and this is the most likely one out of the 3 games they've got left. North Wales are no mugs, believe me, and they are above the Bears in the table on merit. On their day, they're probably a better team overall, but the Bears, as you said, have a good record against them. There's not a huge amount between the teams, and I know that if the Bears perform as well as they can, then they've got a very good chance of winning the game. It's certainly one there that there's a big opportunity. I think it'll be a relatively close game, and hopefully the Bears can see it through and get the win.
Yeah, and it would be absolutely typical that they will get a win and play really well when neither of us are there to see it. So, but hey, if that's what it takes to get another win before the end of the season, if us not being there for one game results in a win, then I suppose we can live with that. Well, that's it for this week's show. Don't forget, we live at covbearspodcast.com. We're at covbearspodcast on Twitter. We're sponsored by York's Tim and Bears Vice Presidents. You can find us in all of those usual spaces, although if you've been listening regularly throughout the season, you probably know where you find us and you already subscribe. And do, of course, please send us your match reports from the North Wales game if you go and you fancy having your voice on the podcast next week. We'd love to feature them on next week's show. But until then, Craig, thanks as ever, and I will speak to you soon.
Yeah. Thanks, mate. Cheers.